Chances are, if you've watched a video on YouTube on how to take a Gaussian splat and bring it to Blender, it's bullshit. Let me explain. There's a few videos on YouTube talking about Gaussian splatting, and they mention outdated plugins and they don't really show you the whole picture. So I want to come to the rescue and show you, at least in early 2026, because things are always changing, the best ways to bring Gaussian splats inside Blender. Now, this can't go without mentioning, Blender is notorious for having pretty limited support when it comes to Gaussian splatting. Compared to other 3D packages such as Cinema 4D, Houdini, Touch Designer, Unreal Engine, and Unity, they all have better support, but recently Blender has been catching up with a lot of third-party plugins and other workarounds that bring it very close to native support, although we aren't there quite yet. Blender hasn't mentioned any official support for Gaussian splat, so I wouldn't count on it for at least the next year. But where we are at now is a whole lot better than we were 2 years ago. I've made a video about Gaussian splats previously, and this is a night and day difference. And if you're new here, I'm pretty involved in spatial art, such as scanning, capturing, taking real world places and bringing them into digital art. And last year I got a whole bunch of new gear. I got a new LiDAR scanner that I've been playing around. I have a video up on that. And also a bunch of new camera equipment. Like seriously, I have an addiction to buying lenses. Sigma boy. Pro tip, if you guys are into camera stuff, because I'm kind of crazy with camera stuff as well. I kind of invested a lot in camera gear recently. Just adapt lenses. You get the same image for like half the price. Buy used on eBay. You get, this is like a $1,000 lens, and I got the adapter and the lens for $350. I straight up robbed the guy. I really want to bring my work to the next level. Instead of just making like cameras flying through hallways, I want to bring more storytelling into my point cloud animations. And I've already done that with a few tests of pieces last year, but expect to see more of that as I continue to play around with that. Before we get into the good stuff, just one quick thing. Asking people to subscribe so played out. Join my mailing list instead, because that's the best way to stay up to date on everything that I'm working on. And if I do end up dropping more involved Gaussian splatting tutorials, you wouldn't want to miss that, because in the mailing list, you get stuff that's exclusive and also stuff that you see first. So if you want to join that mailing list, I'll have the link below. That being said, let's get into the juicy part of this video. All right, so as I said before, 3 different ways. Let's start with the first way, how to bring Gaussian splats into Blender. And that's with the KIRI Engine plugin. I've partnered with KIRI Engine before on my Instagram, but they're not paying me to make this video at all. I just really like the tool and it's great. You can download the 3DGS render by KIRI Engine from their website. Just be sure to use the version 4 of the plugin or newer, because that's when they made this massive change that allows for very responsive splats in the viewport. And the installation is the same as a typical Blender plugin. You just drag and drop this zip into your add-ons. Anyway, this video is not really a tutorial. I just want to make you guys aware of the best plugins to use. It's 100% free, by the way. You can download it from their website or Blender Market, which is called Superhive. So import the ply file. I also got this file from KIRI Engine. If you want to play around with Gaussian splats, you don't have any of your own, just go to KIRI Engine. There's a library of free splats that you can download and just have fun. Okay, so now we're importing the splat. Go hit render. And now you can see we have the splat inside Blender, and the performance is great compared to the version 3 of the plugin, or if you use other workarounds. It's not using, you know, stretched out icospheres, which is what some of the older plugins were using, or planes facing the camera, which KIRI Engine still does support, but it has this new pipeline where it's actually rendering the splats in the optimized way rather than doing this workaround method. If we go to animate, add a new animate modifier and just hit global and noise displacement and just change a few of the settings. You can see in the viewport, the preview is okay. We're getting 6 FPS from all the points displacement. This is CPU bound and pretty typical for a scene of this size with Blender. But if we hop into render, there's some like black box magic that's being done with this plugin, which has an interval time. You can see how slowly it updates. So that's what the one drawback of this plugin is. Anytime you're working with animated splats, to update the scene and preview it, it gets pretty slow. But navigating a viewport is very fast. It's just the updating of the splat. If you want the viewport performance to be better, just use the decimate modifier, set it to something really high, like 95%. And then once we hit update scene, you can see that we actually get like very close to real-time performance. Oh, we had 30 FPS for a second almost. With KIRI Engine, there's really strong support for modifying the splats on your own because they have the modifiers tab. But if you're a power user like me, you can just hop into the geometry node panel. We can actually hop into each individual node and just modify whatever we want. So, and I'll put a video up right now talking about what I mean by that. So you can change the color of each of the individual splats as well as animate them with your own custom displacements, which is pretty advanced. In the animate node, I have noise displacement enabled. So if we hop to noise displace here, we could do something like a rotation animation. So I did this in one of my older videos on YouTube. So I already gave it away. So let me just show you again, vector rotate. Let's actually go back into edit mode so we see what we're doing now because we're working on the point cloud level, which is a perfect time for me to plug in my point cloud course where I teach you a lot of this node-based animation because under the hood, Gaussian splats are just point clouds with extra attributes. If you know how to modify point clouds, you know how to modify Gaussian splats. I haven't made any paid content on Gaussian splats because things are always changing, but if Blender gets official support, then I'll be sure to make a course about it. Anyway, but yeah, I'm making a custom setup. So actually, let's just get rid of all this. I don't need any of that. Delete all of it. And this video would take forever if I went over every single thing, but pretty much the original setup that had the noise texture, I got rid of all of that. And instead we're using vector rotate as the base. Without confusing you guys, when you use vector rotate, you just want to make sure that everything is set to position instead of offset when you're working with vector rotate. So I saw everything that the node extended out from this vector rotate node and plugged it in to position instead of offset. But now we pretty much have a custom setup that we can work with. And here's the setup that you can copy. It's like a twisting, kind of like a washing machine, if that makes sense. I use this setup and now I have a whole new type of animation that isn't out of the box with KIRI Engine. I just wanted to show this because you have a whole lot of customization when doing KIRI Engine and the Blender plugin. Next! All right, the next one is actually officially recognized by Blender, which is actually interesting, but real-time 4D Gaussian splatting. So in this video, you're not getting just 3D GS, you're getting 4D GS, but it's just a demo file. They haven't released a full workflow for 4D GS, but I still wanted to show this. Oh, and then one more thing, while you are using this, be sure to mention Zhi Wang. He's the one that created this node setup. But on their website, they have some pretty sick demos on 4D GS. So I'm not sure if they're gonna open source the pipeline for how they capture these and convert them into a format that's usable for Blender. But as of now, we have the demo node set up in Blender and we can play around with it. So yeah, let's open this file. And by the way, if you do use this workflow, be sure to credit Zhi Wang as I have mentioned before. Once you open the file, you can see that, and it's like this is insane. When I first saw this, my jaw dropped, but so this is like a 4D GS inside Blender. So if we actually hop into this, you can see that it's a bunch of points with scene flow, which is something that I've been trying to find out for so long. I've been taking a deep dive into these computer vision research papers. If you guys want me to do a video on ML Sharp, let me know because I got that working. A few other repos that I've tried, such as Spot Tracker, and then another paper I forget the name of, but Yeah, I'm really into like weird GitHub papers now, so I've been playing around with that. But yeah, this is insane. Scene flow inside Blender, and it's running real time. There's a few settings such as view clip, so if you want all of the points to show at the same time, you can have that enabled. So we don't have the 4D workflow just yet because I'm not entirely sure under the hood how the 4D GS works, but I do know how the 3D GS works. All right, let's quickly breeze through what here needs to be changed in order to make it compatible with 3D GS. So let's actually jump into Geometry Nodes workspace, which is easier to work with when it comes to this setup. And this frame control, we can delete because we're not working with 4D GS, we're working with 3D GS. In the input tab, switch it to 3D GS. Delete this, delete that. This is the 3D GS setup, so we'll rename it. Camera position we can delete, and this key camera will also delete. And let's actually also disable the view clip for now. So from here, we're importing the splat. It's imported. We'll put it in our own collection, and I'll name it motorcycle splat. So now we have it in our own collection. We can hide it for now. Go here, 3D GS, and point to the motorcycle splat. But one last thing, the reason why it's not showing, and I was stuck on this when I was first getting into this setup, is because there's a bake node. So whatever is like right, everything behind the bake node is pretty much locked. So we want to just hide it, and then it should show. I've been having issues with this setup. Let me see, maybe if I change it to 4D GS and just go to 3D, yeah, I don't know. It works like that. So yeah, doing it through when you have the tab set to 4D GS works. I'm not sure why 3D GS doesn't work. Did I miss something? Offset, frame offset Z. Okay. Oh, hallelujah. That's what we needed to change. So make sure the frame index input is set to 0 because yeah, there's like some reason why it turns off. I think it has to do with like shifting of the attributes with the 4D GS, but yeah, just turn those off. And then now we have the 3D GS, and Cartesian Carmel goes over this a whole lot more in his video, but he didn't publicly share his setup. But there's like a lot of things that you really don't need in here. But I'm kind of like scared to like hop in here and delete stuff and then break something. So I just leave it all there. Remember that bake node that we disabled? You see if we re-enable it, we get that original scene because it has a bake from a previous state. So we're gonna modify it, but before we do that, let's just do a transform geometry to fix the splat imported and rotated the wrong way. Hopefully it doesn't break the scene. Oh yeah, it does mess it up. It does mess it up. So yeah, you just wanna do it through this right here. Give me a sec. I think it was -90, like the KIRI Engine one. Yep. Okay, so from here now we have the 3D GS inside Blender. I'm not 100% sure if it supports spherical harmonics, which is a whole nother technical thing. Without getting too technical, spherical harmonics, pretty much when you move around a Gaussian splat, sometimes the splats change how they look, and that makes it look better depending on view dependency. But I'm not too sure if this setup does. If it does, that's good. If it doesn't, then that might reduce realism if you're doing splats with things that involve faces of people. But here, I mean, look, wow, it's amazing. We have pretty much real-time view performance. Camera view is a little laggy, but we don't need this transform geometry. To make things faster, actually, we can try re-enabling this, deleting that baked frame. Not sure why we still have keyframes here. We can delete that and hit bake on this still. And let's see if that changes anything. So maybe slightly faster, I'm not too sure. But if you really want to see what's bogging down this node setup, just look at the timings. Maybe try disabling something that has a very high timing and see if that speeds things up. Yeah, like when you disable stuff, it breaks. So let's not change anything. But right after this bake node is where you can put your set position. And now that we have the set position, I'm gonna bring in a node group that I've made, which I have linked below, which really speeds up Blender point cloud. But now we're working with splats. But as I said before, under the hood, Gaussian splats are just point clouds. So plug in the vector to offset, And now we're displacing the Gaussian splat. And actually, now that I'm seeing it side by side, because I was working with both KIRI Engine as well as this node setup, I feel like this one is faster. So just credit Zhi Wang when you're using it in a commercial project or personal project, because it's CC by 4.0. Use this, or use KIRI Engine if you want something that isn't as involved in power user, because this is far more technical than the KIRI Engine one. But yeah, so from there we can modify the splat like that. And then also, if we hop into shading, we can also modify the shaders. And yeah, I did look into this. This is like a whole bunch of node salad, and I'm not gonna go into this in this video because, to be honest, like 95% of people that watch these videos are beginners. If you want me to like go in a deeper dive with you, I can do a coaching call. So we can also change the color of this thing, and you can get more advanced with like attributes from geometry nodes. But just to show you, like let's say we want to add a gradient. Let's do gradient texture, and then we can do a mix actually. You can modify the splat. I'm just doing this to show you that you have control. I'm not really doing like, oh, here's a finished VFX piece, but like here's the, you know, the control you can do. And you can do whatever you want with it actually, you know, instead of coming up with like a finished product to show off as part of a tutorial. I'd rather just be lean and efficient and show you what I actually know. But yeah, you can modify splats and modify the splat color. Like another quick example, like you can add hue, saturation value here, change the saturation. Pretty much pre-compute is the node where the color is, so do RGB curves and make it pop a bit more, as they say, as all my clients say, make it pop a bit more. And we made it pop a bit more, but you still want another revision. I'm projecting now, but anyway, just like that. Now we have color corrected splat, and the viewport performance is okay. Geometry nodes, you can modify whatever you want with the vector stuff. You know, you have the noise scale and play around with it. You can also do 4D GS stuff, so you can do very technical. Look, I'll just show you the video. Look here, I have this video up here. I took a Gaussian splat sequence. I took a POY sequence from ML Sharp and I made it into a volumetric video. So you can do a lot of stuff with this node setup. So the last way is actually with a method that I don't see anyone in the Blender community talking about, but you know how like you have cycles and Eevee? Those are render engines, and there are other render engines. Like there's a obscure render engine that I believe is still in Blender called POV Ray, which is a very old ray tracer engine if you want to make retro CG graphics. But anyway, Octane is its own standalone render engine, which is available for a lot of 3D packages, but they just released 2026.1, or at least it's still in beta, but by the time you see this video, there'll be a newer version out. But they have a lot more support for Gaussian splatting, but there's a few limitations, such as you don't have access to geometry node attributes. For me personally, that's a deal breaker, but for someone just working with Gaussian splats, it's pretty cool. So I'm on the website right now. Screen looks a little bit different because I'm on my laptop. I was having some trouble. On my desktop, I didn't want to troubleshoot, but you need two things. You need the Octane server, which is a separate program that stays running while you're using Blender, and then you have the plugin itself, which is the Blender add-on. So you install the Blender add-on the same way you do as any other plugin. So let me just quickly show you that. But anyway, Octane Render Prime is the second program you need installed. I believe there is a free trial, but Octane as itself, sorry guys, it's paid. You got to pay for it. I believe I still have some license that's about to expire. So once you have the Blender Octane add-on, it's enabled. Great. We go into File. Just one thing before you open Blender, make sure that the Octane server is already on, which is, for my case, it's already launched. But from here, we go into File, New, and New Octane Render Startup Default. And you can see that actually it's pretty exciting if you've never seen this before, because there's new nodes. So Honestly, I haven't played too much with Octane. So you have compositing nodes. This file pretty much just sets up the Octane environment. On the right side, you can see that it's a completely different layout from Cycles. Like if we switch to Cycles, this is what we're used to. If we go to Octane, whole different layout. But you can either do direct lighting kernel or path tracing kernel for Gaussian splats. Let's go with path tracing because that's the exciting one. And from here, file and quit. So once we quit, we don't need to save. We just relaunch Blender, give it a sec. And now if we just switch the render engine to Octane, now everything should work. Okay, so some just like quick thing, I've been having issues with, I am using the beta version. So instead of doing a whole workflow where they stay on the documentation of launching and then quitting, I just do file, new, Octane render startup, and then I leave it as is, go into shading. And now once I'm in shading, I work from here. So I delete everything and let's just import that splat. This will make sense. You could skip this step, but it'll make sense later why I'm doing this. So make a new material. And can you believe that Octane has a Gaussian splat node? It's weird that there's geometry nodes in shading when it comes to Octane, but yeah, it pretty much works like that. That's cool. So once we plug in displacement into here, and then one more thing we have to do is make sure that we have the geometric node here plugged into material 01, which is the current material, as well as the Octane geo node Gaussian splat. So once that's there, once we hop into rendered view, give it a sec, there we go. You can see now we have it working perfectly. And the reason why I imported the splat like this is so that once we're in the solid view, we can actually see what we're working with and animate and navigate the camera here. But the one thing is that this is just a placeholder object, so you can't like distort the points and everything. Just pretend this doesn't exist, because typically with Octane you would just add in a plane and then you would put the material on that, and then that would be the splat. So this is just a reference object. The one limitation here with this is that you don't have so much control over displacement. I'm talking to Mateo. I'm gonna put up his Instagram right now, but he's doing some like Octane wizardry. So go give him a follow. Check out what he does, because he does crazy fractals with Octane. And yeah, maybe we'll see if it's possible or not. But as of now, with my current experimentation, I don't think it is, but I can't say for 100% sure. And the one thing that's amazing about Octane is, let me just punch into the viewport. We have full path tracing, unlike the other two setups, which I forgot to show with the Zhi Wang setup, that Cycles is pretty limited because, yeah, just the way render engines work. I'm not sure how Octane pulls it off, but it's able to render the splats pretty efficiently in path tracing. With Cycles, you run into the transparency bounces problem, and it just doesn't look good if you're forced to use Cycles for something, unless you have a lot of transmission passes and the scene is able to handle it. I digress. But yeah, you can see we have full control with objects here. We can scale objects and it interacts as if it's a normal object, which is just amazing. KIRI Engine has a workflow for this, but it's like you have to composite the native render with the Gaussian splat render and combine it. Here it's just like right out the box. But as I said before, the main issue with Octane is you don't really have any options to move around the points. We have some settings though, like we have the covariance scale. So if we go back to the splat, that thing where the splats kind of like dissolve, like we have that. And I'm not sure if this can be modified like in the field the same way Blender has, because I just figured out about this yesterday and I'm making a video about it now. So if that's the case, then I'll make a follow-up. But yeah, you can also push it the other way with the covariance. So if you want like a stylized look, you can bring it up to 2. So if you're looking for the most photorealism, then use Octane. And yeah, and then the crazy thing is the splat interacts with other things. As you can see, because we're in Octane, this is a completely different render engine. So the nodes are totally different as well. These are not, you don't get any cycles nodes. It's all Octane nodes. So if you get like a reflection or maybe there's a metallic material. Yes, there is. Plug it into surface. And actually, let's get the Suzanne into subdivision. So pretty much the way these render engines work is that all the nodes outside of shading are normal or the same as native Blender, but once you hop into shading, the whole pipeline is different. So you're working with a whole new engine and things take some time to get used to. But what's crazy now is that you have pretty much reflections with a Gaussian splat interacting with ray tracing. You can't really do this efficiently in cycles, as I mentioned, because of the transparency limitation. But yeah, I pretty much went over the 3. I hope I didn't run this video so long, because if that's the case, then I'll just reshoot this thing, but I want to get it out. So yeah, which one should you use? If you want the most photorealism and you don't need to modify the splat at all, Octane is the best. If you want ease of use, KIRI Engine. If you want the most flexibility inside Blender with the current tool sets that we have available, then use Zhi Wang's node setup. Okay, that's it. So now you actually know how to make proper Gaussian splats. Oh, one more thing. And then the one last thing about Octane that's amazing is that it supports depth of field as well. So if I punch in, right now we're not with a camera. So once I get a camera and move it somewhat close to an object, you can see that we're getting depth of field, although the autofocus is a little bit tricky when it comes to Gaussian splats. Okay, so Octane completely breaks the rules when it comes to camera terminology. So with aperture, the depth of field is the other way around. When the number is bigger, the number is more blurry, whatever. You know what I mean. But you get depth of field with Octane as well, which is actually very, very, very nice. And yeah, forgot to mention, but Octane also supports depth of field and motion blur, and that's like crazy because the other 2 pipelines that I mentioned don't support that. With KIRI Engine, you pretty much get like, you know, super high shutter speed. It's like you don't get motion blur, but Octane is the most powerful engine. All right, this video was unscripted. I hope that it wasn't all over the place. I don't think I'm gonna reshoot this. Maybe I'll reshoot it, we'll see. Hopefully I didn't drag out this video too long because I wanted to mention a lot. Not everything, because it would take hours. If you're like really interested in spatial point cloud GS scanning, because I have the scanner, which I have a video about, you should watch it. Be sure to follow me. I'm trying to bring my art to the next level this year. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This video was long enough. Ciao. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.